It's no surprise that we want the truth here on Truth Wanted. We would love to hear some unexpected things from you. Have you seen Bigfoot? Been visited by a deceased loved one? Had messages from the supernatural? The truth is wanted, and we'd like to hear why ghosts, ghouls, and gods exist, and why we have it completely wrong. The lines are open, and we're ready to hear from you. Truth Wanted? Yes, please. The show is starting now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, ObjectivelyDan. This is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. And if you'd like to call us, you can do that now. The number is 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. And as always, Truth Wanted is a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Every single week, folks, always try to have a special guest with me. This week, no different. John the Skeptic, you already know.
And he is special. He is special.
I love hosting with John. John's great. One of amazing host. And
I like having fun here. It's just a good time. It's always a good time, you know.
I like you having fun too. I wish you could host more. You've been a very busy man with your family responsibilities, and we totally respect that. But you know, I wish we could host together more. That's all.
We should make it happen. Things are going to start calming down for me in the next few months, so I think we might be able to.
That's good. How you been, John? How you been since last time?
Busy. I'm not just a floating circle anymore. I'm like I've got a family to look after. I've broken into television acting. It's been a great time.
Yeah. You were talking to me a little bit about that before the show. You can't say much now, but if you like television, stay tuned.
Right. Just watch more of the televion. Watch the television.
Just keep scrolling through all the channels.
Right. After all the ACA stuff, once you've binged all of that, then watch the television.
And you can watch television and then look for John.
Yeah.
And see what you can find and see what happens.
I might be there. Who knows?
Yeah, he might be there. I get you, man. It's been busy for me too. I've been feeling tired today. Look, my wife got recently. I was showing you this before the show. It's an energy drink called Hell.
Nice.
It's from Europe. And
wait, it's from Europe? I've never seen that before in my life.
She went to Europe recently, and this is one of the things she brought back was this energy drink that had Hell on it. So that's a choice that she made, and I appreciate her for it. Now I get to show it off on the show that I am drinking a little bit of Hell, and you know what? It's not bad.
Does it taste like Hell, or is it no?
It kind of just tastes like Red Bull. I'll be honest. It's not too different from that. So, if I'm going to Hell because I'm drinking it, it's not worth it for sure. But otherwise, it's a satisfactory.
Is this your first can? And I'm sorry that we're talking about an energy drink right now. But is this your first one? Because who knows? How you're going to feel later on. Maybe it will feel like hell when it evacuates your body.
That's true. Yeah, no, I literally pulled this out just because I was like, I'm doing the show and I had this in the fridge. I need to pull it out so that I can show people that I have a drink called Hell, I guess, because that brings a modicum of entertainment value.
Well,
so
report back next week.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see by the end if I'm dying or not.
Right.
If there's demons in me. Because remember that video? Everybody remembers that video of the lady that was the Monster energy drink satanic, because it's got the 666 on it. Remember that? That's a classic,
I feel like Hell would missed a trick there because it's just big bold letters. Come on.
Yeah, it's just Hell. Like an impact font kind of thing.
Did they really try with that? No.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's not great. We don't need an energy drink to be in Hell these days.
That's fair.
I'll tell you that. Once again, and it's been like this since the entire year, but it's like every time I'm on Truth One, it's like, what's a good news that's been happening recently we can talk about? And it gets harder and harder to kind of figure that out because everything is not great recently. They've made some, the atheist community in Austin supports the separation of church and state. And there may or may not be policy decisions recently that don't necessarily reflect those values. And we don't like that. We don't like
Right.
that, I'd
I got
say,
you.
particularly in the state of Texas, where
Right.
I'm at.
Well, do you know what? There's been some stories in my 11-year-old's state school where the teachers have been almost pushing her aside because of her lack of belief in gods and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, stuff you can talk about on air, stuff you
Yeah,
can
why
share.
not? We can, if you know, when we need to. Yeah, we can talk about
I mean,
that.
I want to know. Wait, what is it? Just because, like, why do they care about your child's beliefs? Like, what's the big deal there?
They don't help with when it comes to her being picked on. Other kids are like, "Why don't you believe in God? Why don't you believe?" And she's like, "Well, I'm just not." But then the teachers don't back up. They're not like, "Well, you know, we're a state school. You know, everyone's free to believe." Some of the teachers are like, "Well, yeah, maybe we should discuss this." You know.
No.
Me and my wife went into a parent-teacher conference, and it was 20-minute slots. We were there for an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah, they had to call the principal in because some of the stuff.
Because you were upset because you were saying this isn't being done the way.
Like assemblies with, like, they had like a skating troupe on skateboards come in to do tricks, but then in a state school the skateboarders stopped and then started talking about how Jesus had saved them. Yeah, in a state school, which we weren't happy about. And one teacher, and I can say this because no one knows who the teacher is, but one teacher was talking about pronouns and precepts, and one kid said it was like, think of something that's and one kid said non-binary, and the teacher said, no, that doesn't exist. The teacher said that doesn't exist. Not even like, you can have non-binary star systems. You can have like any.
Yeah.
She
like,
turned
the concept is unimaginable.
Right. But the teacher was like, "What? There are only two genders," is what the teacher said.
No.
And this is a state-funded school, which is why then our meeting just lasted this long. So
gosh, yeah. It's not great. That sucks. I'm sorry that you had to do that, and I'm sure it's just been an uphill battle since.
Oh yeah. It's fun living in the Bible Belt of America.
Right. You know, like when I was in school, I went to a public school, and by the time I got to 5th grade, there were several Muslim students at our school, and I just remember feeling sorry for them every day because they wore burqas and stuff, so they made it pretty visible that they were Muslim and stuff. And I just remember, like, I at least heard one adult make a comment about their ethnicity that was not positive, that I did talk about to other adults at the time. And so it's just like, and I'm in Texas, right, where like people are not very kind to Muslims. And so it's like, when people talk about, like, why don't you talk about Islam on the show? It's like, I'll tell you Islam is bad. I'll tell you that all day. It's just like, I know the Muslims I know in real life probably have it in terms of discrimination just as hard, if not worse, most of the time than I do as an atheist, because they're just, it becomes more visible when there's, associated clothing involved and stuff, right? And I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not great. So don't discriminate in your schools for your kids' religions. Or gender,
especially when these kids are like 10 and 11 years old or young. It's how hard. Just let them learn. Let them learn about stuff.
Oh God, that's so stupid. I don't know, so stupid. But we just live in stupid times, John. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it at this point.
I think just keep your head down. Just let's just ride it out until things get better. Hopefully. Keep speaking up. Keep speaking up when it's safe to do so. But geez, let's just.
The joke I just keep going to as well. We just got to keep doing more call-in shows. We have to.
Here's our outlet. This is where we get it out.
This is our way of just complaining about things at this point. I don't know. It's just, it seems like things are getting worse. But I will say this though. There is a value in at least knowing that you're not alone. Right. I do think that that's an important thing. I'm glad we can at least do that for people.
This is, and it's not just a safe space for us, but anybody that's listening, we want this to be a safe space. So
that's true. on the flip side of that, if you do disagree with us and you want to tell us why, we're open to that too. Again, live call-in show, numbers below. If you think there are only two genders, I'd love to tell you why you're wrong.
Right.
You know, I'm happy to have that conversation with you, but yeah, we'll get to that if we have to. But on that note, we should talk about our question of the week, because every single week we're asking you guys a question in our segment that we call We Want the Truth. Last week, we asked you guys, what do you not want to be in the middle of when the apocalypse starts? Here were our top 3 answers for this. Number 3 comes from Alexander KTN, who said, what not to be in the middle of when the apocalypse starts? Your deconversion, which is an interesting choice there. And I guess in this version, they mean like the Christian apocalypse. You know, because like, yeah, that would be a bad time. Right. From what I've read, it doesn't look good for us. You know, not super great. So thank you for that answer. Number 2, coming from the inimitable Chuck Gatos, who says, you don't want to be working on your teleportation invention during the apocalypse. The rapture might lead to wasted hours of trying to rematerialize your kids. Yeah, that's a sci-fi plot. That's like a Cloverfield 2 kind of thing right there. I feel like you could do, you know, just a little contained story during the rapture. Some guy working on a fly-esque, you know, teleportation machine.
It just goes wrong.
Yeah. No, I don't know, guys. Number 1 though comes from Know What, who says, what would I not want to be in the middle of? A BJ. And
I mean, fair.
I mean, yeah, I guess, or maybe you do. Like, maybe like if you're gonna, it depends on the apocalypse, because like if you're gonna go out,
right,
you know,
go out with a bang.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so that's our number 1 answer for this week. Thank you so much to everybody who
that's deserved as well. That's a deserved number 1.
I mean,
I like it.
I'm not disagreeing. Like, well, no, I am disagreeing. I am saying that you kind of would want to be, again, depends on the apocalypse. Depends on the apocalypse, what's happening, but I don't know. Point is, thank you for everybody who gave your answers this week. The prompt for this next week is, what's an offer Jesus couldn't refuse? And John, I don't know if we didn't talk about the question this week. Did you read the question ahead of time?
Yeah, of course I did.
Okay, great. You got an answer for this
time? Yeah, it's not my first time.
All right, yeah, of course. Yeah.
What's an offer Jesus couldn't refuse? A 3-day weekend break in Rome.
That's pretty good.
He did vanish for 3 days. You know, he had a bad weekend. Let's make it up to him and give him a good weekend. It's a shame we've only got Rome as an option.
Yeah.
I know there's a bit of beef there with him, but maybe that can make up for it.
I would say follow up to that, a vacation with his 12 friends in the desert. You know, you could do a little something with that. But anyway, I am confident that our commenters can come up with even better answers,
way better
than the ones that we've come up with here. So leave your comment below. Don't do it in the chat. If you're watching live, tell us what's an offer that Jesus couldn't refuse, and we'll read our top 3 answers next week. So there you go. Fun stuff there, John. That's it.
That's it.
That's what we got. And you know, like, for guests, for new guests, you know, I always got interview questions and stuff. But you know, John, I know you. I know you.
You have to put up with me fairly often.
Fairly often.
Even if it's just like we're messaging each other, not even on screen, but like we're messaging.
Right. But yeah, I haven't talked to you face to face in a little bit, so it's good to catch up with you, see what's up with the YouTube's landscape. You know,
well, and I've got a lot of stuff coming up outside of that. Like there's conventions and stuff coming up, and I'm very fortunate to be in the capital of the Creation Museum land in the USA, because there's not one, but there are 2. There's the Creation Museum, and there's the Ark Encounter in Kentucky.
Right. I forgot that those are separate things.
Yeah, well, apparently so. I only found this out today, but everyone's friend, Godless Engineer, his wife is organizing a trip to the Creation Museum the day before the Ark Encounter protest, which is a week Saturday. So I'm going to be going to both of those places.
Ooh, yeah, and you were practicing your American accent beforehand.
Yeah.
And I would say pretty good. I think you could pass it off
Okay.
because if you come off that you're foreign, then it's trouble for you, I'd say.
Right.
You know, pretty much anywhere in America, but especially at the Ark Encounter, that's like a danger zone.
So yeah, and I'm practicing. I've been practicing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it may come out at some point during the show. Who knows? But we're also told that there may be a special guest there. At the Ark
that's
Encounter
not
protest.
you.
That's not me. That's not
okay.
Someone a big name in the creation world is set to be there as like an opposing, and we're not talking Mr. Ham. We're talking another one.
Okay, because that my first guess was Ken.
Well,
Ham.
he runs the place, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think
he probably will be there, but there's another one coming up from down south. They're coming up to counter protest all the stuff that we're talking about.
Counter protest.
Yeah. Counter protest the protest. Yeah.
I didn't realize they had counter protests at these because I've never been to the place myself. I know they've done protests before, but yeah, that's kind of curious. Well, on that note, that's great. I'm glad you get to go do that. I'm kind of jealous, actually. I think, you know, since I got married recently and I went to Japan, I kind of crossed off 2 bucket list things for me. I've been kind of thinking about my goals. You know what? Going to the Ark Encounter and protesting, I think I'm going to go put that one on there. I need to do that one day.
We'll see you next year.
Yeah.
It's a bit short notice to come up next weekend. But
yeah.
Next year, Dan.
We'll figure it out. Speaking of events, we'll talk about this actually. Well, we'll talk about it when it comes, but you know, Back Cruise is happening as well.
Yeah.
I just had to get tickets for that today for my wife. So you should go get them if you have it. We'll talk about it later though, if you don't know what we're talking about. But yeah, that's cool. And you're also going to go to NanoCon.
Yeah, I'm on a panel at NanoCon, so I'm giving like a 10-minute talk. I'm one of the guest speakers at the Ark Encounter protest, and then a couple of weeks after, I'm giving a talk on I'm on a panel, for NanoCon. And I love NanoCon. It's kind of in the middle of like this section of the USA, so many people go there, and it's just a great hangout. It's a great place to go and meet some like-minded folks.
I have not gone to NanoCon, and that's something I probably should go to, because I feel like out of all of the conferences that people talk positively about, I hear the most when it comes to NanoCon. So and you've been before? Yeah,
this will be my second time. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, can't wait.
Shout out to Secular Rarity, who's told me I should be going. You know, if they invite me, I would go. If they said, hey, you can be a speaker, I'd probably do it.
I'm going to text him after this and say, invite Dan. Come on.
I'd probably make it out there. You know, it's like Tennessee, right? And we could do it. Well, it's
not that far a drive, right?
From Texas, a little bit. It's a little bit far. Okay. But you know, I'm an American, so I can fly. It won't be too bad.
Oh, you're so lucky.
You know, that's I am white, so I'm not dealing with that now, which is a blessing, I would say.
Right.
Yeah. God, how terrible is that to say? Jesus.
I'm very much stranded at the moment.
It's not looking great. For shout outs to our non-citizens who are watching this show right now. I feel you. You know, I'll say that we'll say that much as far as what I can say, what the atheist community also would allow me to say. But I hear you, I see you, and wouldn't mind if you wanted to call in about your experiences onto the show. I think we could work with that for sure. Speaking of calling into the show, we do have a couple of callers who are waiting to talk to us. You want to get started with it?
That's why we're here. Come on.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can do it. Before we do, John, we have to thank the patron of the week, because every single week we are always giving a shout out to the folks who donate on the Patreon. I, of course, want to thank everybody that donates, but this week's patron of the week is going to be waiting for a drum roll. You know, Deanne Kearns. Thank you so much, Deanne Kearns. And thank you to everybody that donates. You guys are all amazing. And with that out of the way, let's get to our first caller. We have Prisoner calling from Texas. Prisoner 24601 is the call sign that they went with. I don't know if that's a reference to something and I'm just like illiterate, and I don't know.
I'm not getting the reference either. So
okay, well, I'm gonna say prisoner for sure. Prisoner, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hello, John. Hello, Dan. I'm told my volume was low. Am I reaching? Am I coming through?
You sound perfectly great to me. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Prisoner 24601 is from Les Mis. That's Jean Valjean's prison.
Oh, I have not seen Les Mis. Have you seen Les Mis?
I've seen Les Mis. I'm not a fan of Les Mis, but
Ooh,
sorry.
okay.
Sorry. I know it's controversial.
That's a hot take.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
Hey, you don't apologize for your feelings. You know, we'll talk about hot takes on Les Mis later. Prisoner, what do you got for us?
Well, I have two stories, very short stories, about teaching religion in public school. One really good, one really bad.
Okay.
In high school, I was in a small town, typical little 3A high school here in North Texas in the 70s, and they offered a kind of a Bible survey course. Old Testament, New Testament, these are the prophecy books, these are the poetry books, etc. And it was very, vanilla, very even-handed. But on several occasions, someone would ask what you would call a sectarian question. They would ask the teacher, well, did that really happen, or is that true? And Miss Chapman, bless her, said, I can't answer that question because of the separation of church and state.
Hell yeah, okay.
She just taught it as history and literature and would not answer those kinds of questions. So my point being, religion can be taught. This was 50 years ago in a small town.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be done, but but there will be, of course, widespread abuse if it is done. Now,
yeah, this is in response for those who are listening and aren't listening live. We have a chat poll going on right now saying, can religion be taught in schools? And if you want my take on it, yes, I obviously think it can be, but I agree with you that if you're going to be teaching it in, say, like Texas, it's probably not going to, there are loopholes or there's not enough oversight to enforce that in the way that we would all want it and hope to be. So it's kind of it's a tricky situation, but anyway, Prisoner, it sounds like you're a fan of keeping it separate, or teaching it, I guess, teaching religion in schools. You think it can be done?
Well, it was done in the 70s in a small Texas town, so that demonstrates that it is possible. But like I say, there will be widespread abuse of that.
For sure.
But
I think I agree with you there.
My second little bit is a little more disturbing. In 7th grade, we had a wonderful math teacher who was funny and a tiny little woman, about 112 years old. Everybody loved her. Well, one day she took a big chunk of class to tell us about the missing day. That's still going around. You know about the missing day?
The missing day? You mean like how we have like leap year?
No. This was about 1970, so the space program and NASA, this was very much in the news. And she said, well, when NASA was planning the moonshots, they found a discrepancy. There was a missing day in the cosmological order. So they went back to the Bible and found out it was when God stopped the sun for Joshua. And the 7th grader,
wow.
I knew, number one, there's no cosmological calendar. They couldn't possibly have known that. And why are you telling this in math class? You have no business doing this. I was indignant even as a 7th grader that she would bring this religious bullshit into math class. So it can go either way.
Wow.
I've never heard of that before. Have you heard of that, John, about missing day?
No, that's news to me.
That's so funny because there is like a passage in Joshua, but isn't it like I guess they pause the sun in the sky in the book of Joshua so that they can keep fighting is the story. So I guess that's what that's related to. But man,
that's still going around as a thing. People are still touting that.
I can see it now. That's that's a boomer Facebook post of being like, hey, did you know NASA had to stop? NASA had to go to the Bible to figure out why their calculations weren't. Yeah, I could totally see it. For sure.
Word. There's a big difference in this. This is where the big difference in being in the USA and the UK is because a math teacher, a geography teacher in the UK would never like stop a class to talk about this. And I had religious studies in high school, but we learned about loads of them. You know, the big three, obviously, Christianity and Hinduism and Islam, was like, this is what the folks believe in these countries, and this is what they're taught. Obviously, you don't have to accept this as true, but this is, you know, it's just more of an information thing. I found out 10 years after I finished high school that my geography teacher was a Jehovah's Witness. That's how like little we knew about our teacher's religion. Like, I had no idea. He'd never brought it up, and then friended him on Facebook and saw that he was a Jehovah's Witness. Had zero clue. And that's just like how different it is over there compared to here. You just like, it's such a like inverted thing. Like, oh, I'm religious, but we don't know about, you know. It's
a denomination thing too, though, I think, because I learned evolution from the lady that went to my church. Actually, she was a science teacher, but also happened to go to the same Methodist church I grew up in. But you know, like Methodists don't. Most of them, well, there's a spectrum with Methodists, but a lot of them don't care about evolution. Like they were totally fine with it. And so I think like it's a Southern evangelical thing that's kind of happening there too. I don't know, because I can also see the other way around, where your science teacher is also the lady that goes to church with you, and it probably doesn't want to teach about evolution or something like that, right?
Maybe.
Yeah,
that's paradoxical, John. That's paradoxical, because the Jehovah's Witnesses are notoriously anti-education. The fact that your teacher went to school and got a degree and was a teacher makes him the.
It is interesting. Yeah, actually, that you point that out. But maybe they came to Jehovah's Witness after they got the degree. I don't know.
That could have happened.
Yeah,
but again, like even over there, that every section of religious denomination is treated differently. You know, I know a few people over there who are Mormons who would never like think about going on a mission, or, you know.
Maybe Americans are just not very thoughtful of other people. I think that's probably what it is. You know, but
present company excluded.
John, my best to Lisa. How's she doing?
She's still pooping things out every single day. You know, that's how the universe came to be. A rainbow giraffe pooped the universe into existence. That's, you know.
Is there a Lisa Rainbow Giraffe T-shirt? Are those available? Can I get one of those?
There are, if you search in the right places. I'm not going to promote where you can get those, but they are definitely available. Gotcha. You know, you just need to know where to look.
Gotcha.
Yeah, John the Skeptic has a YouTube channel. That's a fact.
I can't see
that's a fact I could talk about, I think.
That's a fact. Yeah.
You know, but anyway, thanks for sharing those stories, prisoner. Was there anything else you wanted to add before you let you go?
I did very quickly. A brilliant first answer on oral sex during the apocalypse. I wouldn't know if I was coming or going.
Hey.
Oh my God! I'm regretting all of this already. Oh my God. Okay. All right. I'll let you go, prisoner. Thank you for thank you for the call.
Have a good one.
You too. Thanks for the stories.
So listen, when Kelly and I are on together, we do talk about penises more than we should. So
that's true, actually.
Yeah. So I'm sorry that's now sort of spilling over into you, and I also said spilling.
There's no reason for me to be prudish, you know. Honestly, it's just you know, it's a thing.
Happens.
It's a thing. But yeah, it is. I guess I am kind of thinking about it. I don't know what the difference. We were talking about this a week or two ago on the show, which is like, you know, you don't have a separation of church and state in the same way in the United Kingdom that you do in the U.S., but it seems like it worked out kind of better. So it's like, what happened? What went wrong? Like, what? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But
but has it always been as it is now, or is it getting worse?
Yeah, you know, and I've read stuff like Jesus and John Wayne, you know, that talked about the history of like evangelicalism developing specifically as a sort of a U.S. phenomenon, how the modern evangelical culture is not necessarily like it was 100, 200 years ago, right? And there's some like trends there, you know, that probably deserve a more nuanced discussion than I could ever give it. But I will say this: I think America we are rife to believe in a lot of things. There's a lot of opportunity for grifters to do their thing. And I think evangelicalism is swept up in that, in my opinion. So maybe that's the best way to sum up that side of the
There's a lot of
conversation.
space here as well, and there's a lot of chances for people to not research stuff. If you,
Right.
it does seem like you're told something, and that is suddenly, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's what it must be, and people
Right.
don't do their own research. And I see it all the time. Oh, I saw this on a meme somewhere that the X is happening, and folks are like, they accept a meme as the news and don't bother looking into it.
Right. That was like my biggest, a lot of people learn stuff in college. One of my biggest life-changing things was actually how to read and understand the news. Like I didn't have a habit of reading the news every day because I didn't know what to make of it. I couldn't if you showed me a piece, I wouldn't have been able to necessarily tell you if it was an opinion piece or a news piece. I didn't even fully understand how that works functionally, right? And I think a lot of people are like that, where if you don't have that kind, if you get your news just by watching TV, for example, you're going to have a very different perspective than reading from news websites or getting your memes from Facebook and getting your news that way, right? It's like that story that happened with Joe Rogan, right, where he was talking about, they have cat litter at these schools because there's kids that are identifying as cats, and it's that wasn't even real, it wasn't a thing, but because it's on Joe Rogan, that's a lot of people thought that's real. So I don't know, there's a problem, I think. There's another problem of the many problems that we have going on, but
anyway,
that's great. It's really cool. Really awesome time to be alive.
Is it really? Is it? No, let's just move on.
Yeah, moving on. We will get to some other calls, but real quickly, it is that time of year again. I talked about this earlier on. We are doing the Bat Cruise. Okay, so if you don't know what that is, we take a little cruise ship down here in Austin to watch some of the bats that come out from under Congress Bridge, and it is awesome. And you get to meet some of the hosts of the ACA that will be there for us. Val Kai is going to be there. J Mike's going to be there. I am going to be there, and a whole lot of other folks. So if you want to go, tickets are out right now. The early bird special is done. We are just doing general admission right now. It's for August 16th, 2025. Come get it. Info is at tiny.cc/batcruise. If you want to get it. And there are limited supply. So we will definitely sell out probably before the week of, I would say. So, get them as soon as you can. And next thing I want to say is if you want to do our weekly watch parties, if you're a local, we do have watch parties at the Free Thought Library on Sundays for live viewings of Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience. So check that out. Doors open at 11. It is a great place to hang out, and it is always free. And usually they have some snacks and stuff too. It's good time. So check that out if you haven't already. But before I keep going with these announcements, let's just get to some more calls. I think
let's.
We were talking about. I think this caller decided they want to change their mind and talk about something else, and that's really cool. We're talking to Josh, who is talking to us from Kansas. Josh, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, John. Thanks for calling. Not John, Josh. That's very similar names. What do you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, I was interested in your guys' position. I think so. Not atheist, but agnostic. Is that correct? Is that
like us?
Would you describe yourselves as atheists?
Yeah, I would say I'm an atheist. But I mean, if we're going down the colloquial use of the word agnostic as a stepping stone, I steer clear of that, because atheism and agnosticism are kind of not related, but cousins, and it's not. They're two separate things.
Right.
It's do I know that there is or isn't a God? Do I believe in a God? No. Atheist.
Yeah. I prefer the term igtheist. There's a whole reason why I do that, and it's a whole spiel. For most people, I'm comfortable with the label of atheist. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, I was interested in talking to you guys about just kind of evaluating which worldview is more likely and which explains the totality of reality better, atheism versus theism.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I don't think theism has explanations for really much of anything, particularly Christianity, right? I don't think it's explanations for things make sense. I don't think it comports with our observations. And again, I'm talking about common understandings of Christianity, which is separate from theism, which was what you're specifically asking about. But I don't think like general theism or even deism really has a lot of explanatory power either. Which is also why John was bringing up the whole agnostic versus atheist thing, because by some people's definitions, we are agnostic. One common thing is saying agnostic atheist, because we don't tend to necessarily say God isn't absolutely real. It's just, it's not something that we have an active belief in. And again, there's nuances to that position and how that's understood. But in general, yeah, I don't find theist positions very convincing. What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And which one's more likely for me? Atheism, because I'm not convinced. That's, you know, if that's what the conversation's about. But I mean, I feel like both Dan and I would love to hear, if you are a believer, what it is that convinces you, and that might then, you know, sway us one way or another.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so where I'm coming from is I kind of think of it, well, I start with the very beginning of recorded history and then just kind of evaluate the great thinkers throughout history from the beginning of time all the way up through to the modern era. And for thousands of years, the greatest scholars and thinkers in history have always been some form of realist, right? Or theist or polytheist, right? And so, basically, at some point, very, very recently, someone had to decide that this realism and theism was no longer up to par, and so they had to overthrow that. And that really appeals to me coming from that perspective, because I was born into theism, and so it resonates with me, that idea where, for me personally at least, I have to overcome my theism and belief in God to take on any other opposing position like atheism or agnosticism. And so what I have to do is I have to consider, okay, what position has more explanatory power while being more simple, right? Occam's razor and whatnot. And I evaluate atheism and the materialism and nominalism that typically comes with that. And I realize I can't explain the origin of the universe. I can't explain subjective experience or how consciousness arises from neural activity, for example. And I'll just leave it at that for now. There's a lot of other really difficult problems to overcome, because I've tried on these worldviews to the best of my ability, because truth ultimately is what I'm after. Obviously, that's what we should all be after. But yeah, it's failed to overcome so many of these sorts of problems and the theism, specifically Christian metaphysical realism, I'll put it that way, has been, for me at least, a much more satisfactory position or worldview when it comes to explanatory power and simplicity as well.
Can I ask why Christian in particular?
Why Christian in particular?
Yeah.
Well, there's a number of reasons. Just to throw one out there, I think it solves one of the most fundamental and difficult philosophical problems out there, the problem of the one and the many. It solves that exceptionally well, more than any other position I've discovered. The problem of universals as well. Obviously, it solves a number of problems, and there are other positions. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Christianity is the only one to solve a number of these difficult issues, but our problems. But yeah, just to name a few. My ancestors. I mean, it was handed down to me. This is the tradition that I was born into, and I know that plays a significant role as well.
Yeah. No, Josh, I want to get you. I know you're excited to talk to Josh as well, John.
Yes.
No, I appreciate your thoughtful response. I'll be real quick. I'm gonna do 30, 45 seconds, John, and then you jump in, okay? Because it sounds like you had a question. Because I think I would definitely meet you in the middle on some of this here. I mean, yes, you're right. Some of the greatest thinkers of history definitely believed in God. Isaac Newton, Blaise Pascal, incredible people who had a lot of contributions, had beliefs in God. I can't argue with that there. And I think that's an interesting
Aristotle.
Well, Aristotle didn't believe in Christian God, but he had God belief.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, definitely theist there. So yeah, we can debate the merits of whether that matters or not. But it's hard for me to have a view of reality based on a historical consensus like that, because I think if you looked at the individual thoughts of a lot of these thinkers, like Aristotle, for example, did not think of the same gods in the same way that Isaac Newton did or Blaise Pascal did even, right? So I think there's some differences there, as well as like I think where we might disagree is that I agree that Christianity attempts to provide explanations for some of the questions that you've brought up, and I don't find them to be sufficient answers. I think that's where you're going to lose John and I, because it's hard for us to find them as acceptable. But anyway, John, you're ready to go. You take this. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that yes, there were great thinkers that believed in certain things, but what about modern great thinkers who don't believe in these things, who have equally as much to say about how things came to be?
Right.
A big fan of mine who I have a massive man crush on is Professor Brian Cox. He is a fantastic mind, in my opinion, and I would listen to that dude all day. And he is a non-believer. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he identifies more as agnostic, but he knows about the difference between agnosticism and atheism. But that being said, you said something else about growing up. How would it have been if you had grown up in another place in the world and you didn't have answers for these things? Would you, if you were in India, for instance, and your family and your ancestors were all Hindu and they had their Hindu answers to these questions that you have, which we can touch on again in a second, do you think you would then have been a Hindu believer?
Like a Hindu metaphysicalist? Instead of a Christian one?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. Unfortunately, it's impossible to, I couldn't possibly know. But I would say that it would certainly be more likely that I would be a Hindu than most other religions or positions, whatever you want to call it. I would say.
But that then could change depending on where you are in the world. If you're
where you are and when you are, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in Africa, at some point, thousands of years ago, you may not have been either of those things. You could have believed in a mountain being that provided rain. I don't know what they did. But you also said something about you don't know the answers to certain questions. Let me just get this out and then I'll let you speak again. But you said you didn't know you didn't know the answer to some of these questions. So it then made sense that what you were taught by parents or teachers who also believe these things, that made the most sense. But just because you don't know the answer to something doesn't mean that people who study these areas don't know. And there are, like you mentioned, consciousness. There are tons of folks who study consciousness and have just chemical answers to why we are and why we think and why we do all these things. And I would suggest going and finding those people before you say, I don't understand something, therefore the best explanation is a God and the God that I was taught to believe.
Yes. Right. No, I agree with that completely. I actually have done that as extensively as possible. And unfortunately, that's one of the problems with materialism, naturalism. It really just has no answer to the question, how does consciousness arise from neural activity? Like, do you have an answer for that? I mean, I haven't found
I don't. Yeah. I don't have an answer for that, but I don't take that next step to then go, so it must be because of being. I go, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd love to find out one day, So I'm comfortable with saying, I'm not sure how this works, and I'd love to find out. And maybe one day I'll manage to get on the phone with Professor Brian Cox, and he can explain it all to me.
This is an advantage that Christianity has that atheism does not. which is a confidence in answers that we can't give. I can't confidently tell you the origins of consciousness. I can give you ideas and theories that smarter people than me have come up with and proposed, and that's about the limits of it. And so that is something that the atheist, and as specifically the materialist position, as you quite aptly put it, right, has a problem with dealing and overcome. What I also know, though, is that we have been able to explain a lot, and we know more today than we did before. And if we followed the exact Christian model of the world at any point in Christian history, we would have a hard time reconciling that with what we know about modern observations of science in many different aspects. For example, the belief that people can be possessed by demons, right? That's pretty clear in the Bible. I think it's pretty clear in Christian history that this is a thing that happens, and yet we have never, ever been able to actually see that, right? Like, that, and this is one particular Christian claim. But I find this to be one of many claims that Christianity makes about how the observable world works that kind of fails to fall into fruition, which gives me that skepticism towards Christianity in particular as having any reasonable explanations for even bigger questions like why we're all here and, what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. So the things like demon possession, I find this very fascinating because I think that most people, including many, if not most, let's say Bible Belt, evangelical sorts of Christians, I think they have this kind of Marvel Universe cinematic sort of idea of demons and angels flying around with wings in some alternate reality or something like that, and demons with pitchforks and horns or whatever. That is not, I would argue that that's not what those agencies are. So metaphysically, we can explain that much better than this that belief flies in the face of science and everything that we know to be true today. But
sure, but doesn't that kind of? And sorry to interrupt you, Josh.
My question.
Oh, go ahead if you had a question.
Well, yeah, I just really quick. I was. I think that you can justify a proper metaphysical understanding of these agencies, right? But
demonic agencies.
I'm curious, like if it, yes. So as far as like universal principles go, and I think so for you guys, I would suspect that these universal principles, like we all agree that universal principles exist. Everybody does, but whether or not they're real,
I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to stop you there because I don't know what that means.
No, I'm confused on that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
But before we get into that, I kind of want to challenge you on this actually, because like you said people have a Marvel movie understanding of like demons and stuff, but I'm just talking about what the Bible says. Like there's a story of Jesus taking demons, possessing people and putting them into pigs, and then having those pigs killing themselves by running off into some water, right? Like this is just a literal text, right? And like that's not the only instance of spiritual forces working in the world. We don't have there's no universal principles that need to talk that are even mentioned in stories like this, right? This is again just one of many claims of the history that Christianity makes that I just have trouble with, right?
Right. No, I get that completely. Like, so there are multiple ideas here.
Are you walking off to get a Bible?
Josh, what happened? Where are you going? Show's happening over here, bud.
Sorry, no, my wife just came home. I had to let her in. So, yes. So demons.
No, we need to leave your wife outside next time. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that. You should let her in. Oh man.
So one
there he goes. He's off.
It's going to make his wife a cup of tea.
Yeah, Josh, if you got to take care of something with your family, that's cool, but we are live right now. So just FYI.
Sorry, guys. I thought my voice was going through to the headphones, and I walked away.
Okay.
So, anyways, these demonic agencies. One possible explanation for this is that these are allegorical stories, right? So these are allegories. These are not necessarily literal demon possessions and Jesus like somehow taking these demons and throwing them in swine and casting them into the ocean. So
is that what you believe, Josh?
I do, yes. But
okay.
I also tend to believe that a lot of the Bible is literal as well. Right. I do believe that those stories are allegorical and point to higher truths.
But can I just jump in? I have a question
John,
about that
you need
because
to go.
I'm not a believer in the Bible. I've never really read the Bible. I've read parts of it. How do you then, Josh, know the difference between a part of the Bible that is literal and a part that is like just a story? How do you tell the difference?
How do you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm walking outside here. Loud. Okay, so the difference between how do you tell the difference between an allegorical story and a literal? Well,
how do you tell the difference? I don't want to know like how I would. I want to know how you know that this part of the Bible is a true part.
I refer to reason, tradition, and well, those are the kind of the primary ones. So you have to apply logic to it, like anything, and for me in particular, the tradition. So what specific figures in history said, because they've earned my trust. I tend to default to them to a certain degree, at least, as well.
Okay, but on that note, like the Catholic Church does demon. Like the Exorcist is a thing, like as a movie, because exorcisms happen. Like they developed the practice of exorcisms. They weren't metaphorically getting demons out of people. I think it was a very literal belief for most of Christianity, right? I think what happens, and this is a problem that I have with Christianity, Josh, is that there's a post hoc rationalization that sometimes comes with these stories that don't match up to our material existence, right? Now that we live in a world of cameras and other kinds of evidence that kind of show, hey, this stuff actually doesn't happen the way that we think that it does. It's looking back, it seems like we could say, oh, well, this is a metaphor, but that wasn't the reality for like most Christians in most parts of history. It seems like this is a real thing, and this is true for other truth claims about the Bible as well, right?
Sorry to interject here. That's not true at all. Like the ancient Christians for thousands of years, I mean, literally, they believed in the allegorical and symbolic interpreting of the scriptures. Like that goes back to Origen, Augustine, Saint Maximus the Confessor, so on and so forth.
Sure. The Eastern Fathers, I agree. There is a meditative sort of different understanding of Christianity, but that's another problem, again, with Christianity is there seems to always, we live in a multiverse of Christianity. It's kind of up to individual interpretation. And this is John's sort of point. It doesn't seem like we have a reliable way of knowing what's fact and what's fiction. Because reason is not good enough, right? When you have a religion of over 1 billion people, it seems people reason differently, right?
Is reason good enough for your worldview?
Well, that's an interesting question. What do you think, John?
I mean, what is my worldview? Because I'm not sure if you know what my worldview is, and how would reason affect it, since you know what it is that I have as a worldview.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so one thing that's a problem with when we talk about it is that as atheists, right, we kind of present the skeptic position, and the skeptic position doesn't necessarily make the positive claim, again, that we know the answer to, say, consciousness, origin of the universe, these things like that, right? We just kind of cast doubt on the explanations that are given, right? So I don't have to have, for example, an explanation as to what really happened with demon possessions back in the day, right? I can propose a number of things, but to propose that there are actual spirits that sort of infect people's bodies, for lack of a better word, and harm people and do these things. Like, I don't find that to be the most reasonable, right? So some people say that this is a cop-out, but we have to be able to reject some positions as not being true, right? We can't live in a world where every interpretation is true. Otherwise, we can't really make sense of it, right? So I think we are allowed to reject things that we don't find to be plausible.
Right.
So by rejecting those positions, though, you are gaining a position. You realize that, right?
Yeah,
I don't think we are, though. I think we're just saying, no, we don't accept that, and we've opened ourselves up to a multitude of other possibilities. That's not going, it's not this, therefore it must be this, which it sounded like you were suggesting.
Right.
So your position is, I don't know anything about the world, and that's simple and has more explanatory power than.
No, I think you're putting words in our mouths, John. Right. Josh, I sorry, I keep calling you John. I don't mean to do that.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, but again, with demons, right? I could reject demon possessions and be a Hindu, right? I mean, I don't have to be an atheist to reject that position, right?
Likewise, I could be a spiritualist, which I was, and not accept demon possession.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So, but the conversation is which has more explanatory power, which is more reasonable, which is more likely, theism or atheism, right?
Well, but then we're going down. Which has more explanatory power and which one is more reasonable are two very different things. Because I could explain away demon possession with absolutely anything, and does that make it reasonable? No, it doesn't. But so. Just because we're not accepting or we don't have an explanation for something doesn't mean we're unreasonable. We're just in the position of we don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah.
Well, no. I'm just just in case that was the misconception.
I got you. No. I think all I'm trying to do is figure out. Okay, for me, and for us, I suppose, since we're in this conversation. We have theism versus atheism in terms of worldviews, which is reasonable, which has more explanatory power. And for me, trying to put on atheism and nominalism and materialism, I find it very difficult because of all the things that I've brought up, all the questions that it can't answer sufficiently. And then it sounds like your guys' position is, well, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to try to steelman this. One is that Christianity doesn't seem realistic because they believe in things like demons. And two, we don't have to take a position, and that doesn't make us unreasonable. But I just don't know how that applies to how that shows how atheism is a better position in any way.
Okay.
Or agnosticism.
So I'll take this if you don't mind, John, because I think the framing here is quite a common one in Christianity, and it's one that atheists largely reject. And it is this what we would describe as a false dichotomy between atheism and theism. And the false dichotomy is these are both explanations for things, and we need to figure out which one is the better explanation, right? So if you evaluate atheism as you might a theist position, you can see how that makes sense. But the problem is the atheist position isn't quite like theism, right? So we're not necessarily making the positive claims. It's the burden of proof doesn't fall on us to have actual explanations for all of the answers that we're trying to get, all the questions that we're asking, right? And again, this is why atheists are sometimes seen as copping out on this, because it's like, wait, what do you believe then? What do we have? And the truth is, it's going to be different based on the atheist, how one might conceive their worldview. But regardless of that fact, it's more correct to say, is Christianity true or not true? That's the question that we're more interested in, rather than is atheism true or theism true, or is theism the best explanation or not, right? Because again, it's a bit of a nuance there. Because I'm never going to be able to tell. I'm not going to be able to sit here and say, well, here's the here's the whole formula for how consciousness happens. Here's the whole formula for how the universe works. I don't have that ability, and I probably never will, right? But I can evaluate something like, say, Scientology, and say, well, I don't think Scientology works for X, Y, and Z. And does that rely on presuppositions like a materialist worldview? Maybe, right? Depending on the critique. But regardless, like I said, we tend to define atheism as a rejection of a position rather than a positive. Does that make sense?
Nope. I guess he left. I guess.
Oh no, is he gone? Oh, that's too bad. It was a really good discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. It all just boils down to, are you convinced of the existence of a deity? No, yeah. I'm an atheist. It's the theists and the believers that say, oh, we know how the universe started because God did this, or we know how where the first humans came from because God did this. That's a side issue from where I stand anyway. Do I believe in a God? No, I don't. Right. I don't then have to go, oh, well, I better tell you what I believe about the beginning of the universe and what I believe about where humans go. That's not my position. I'm just seriously just not convinced that there's a being in the sky that does all this.
Right. This is a hard thing to get past. And this is something that stopped me because, this is a difference between your story and my story, John, because I was a Christian. Right. I said John. I got John right that time. I was about to correct myself, but no, you are John.
I am.
Yeah. So, I was a Christian, and morality really held me up. I was like, atheists don't have an account of morality. I don't understand. They seem to say different things, and there's no consensus. But it doesn't have to be, right? You just have to. When you examine Christians' takes on morality, when you understand that explanation, it just doesn't hold up. It doesn't work. So I can reject it. As part of the realm of possibilities, but that's a nuanced thing, and it's not something that Christianity really is great at framing. Because when you go to church, you go to sermons, and they criticize atheism, they do characterize atheism as a position that holds that evolution is true, a position that holds that there's a Big Bang, right? So that's when the debate kind of gets muddled a little bit.
Right. And I'm sure you and I may have differing opinions on the beginning of the universe.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Or morality. That's another.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard because again, that is a hard thing about being an atheist. That is the disadvantage, is that you're not going to have those surefire answers to a lot of those kinds of questions. So, but anyway, I felt like I was getting excited to talk to John there. God damn it, Josh!
Dan, I'm going to call you
anyway.
Daryl or something. Just once.
Yeah, you can do that. I didn't want to monopolize the time there, John, because I know you wanted to talk to him too.
No, it's good. It's a great conversation.
It was really good. I hope he calls back and maybe we can continue that. I do see him in the queue there, but let's get to another caller first, and then maybe if we can kind of rejoin it if he's ready. But before we keep going here, real quickly, just want to say we do have some super chats that came in, so let's go ahead and read some of those. We have one from Miranda Rensberger, who's a member for 1 year, gave $10 and said, "Is this enough to convince John to demonstrate his American accent? Is it?"
I'm going to get very offensive here because I'm going to go stereotypical from where I live.
Okay.
I live here in North Kentucky, and to me, this is how they sound.
That's pretty good. I think it's. I don't know if you 100% pass, but it's pretty close.
But I feel like if nobody knew that I was British, and
that's what I'm trying to say, because I think I know you, so I'm like I'm filling in the gaps. Yeah. I'm trying to think, if I met you at like a convenience store, would I be convinced? Probably. I think I would.
There you go.
I think I would. But
I'm all I need.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I like it. I hope you get a role where you have to be an American.
I've done that plenty of times.
Okay. I haven't seen it, so I need to see some more of that. So there you go. That's a good use of a super chat there, Miranda. Thanks for that. Another super chat from Dustin King, member of 2 years, gave $5 and said, "A God doesn't explain the origin of the universe because it requires explanation itself. Likewise, a soul requires explanation itself." And this is a great point. This is another reason why Christianity's kind of hard, right? Because it's like, okay, you posit God, you posit a soul, you posit, I don't know, Holy Spirit or heaven. It's like these things kind of don't make sense, right? Like, I don't.
And okay, let's say it is a God. Let's say it is, just for S and G's. Let's say it's a God. How do you know it's your God? How do you know that?
Right. And
it opens up a whole new can of worms.
Yeah, and this is something that Josh did, and if Christians kind of do this too. We didn't talk about it too much, but he brought up lots of people in history thought a God was real, but you really have to put an asterisk on that because it's like, again, Aristotle did not think Jesus he was before Jesus, but it's like he did not think the Old Testament was describing reality. I don't think, right? It's like, I don't know, that's very different.
What about the great thinkers that never made it to being
Sure.
well known? There are probably thousands of well known or great thinkers from Norway who believed that Thor was the reason there was thunder. Still, they had some great ideas, but they believed in the Norse gods.
It's very possible too that many thinkers of history probably had reservations about the religion that were around them and probably couldn't for a lot of. I mean, Socrates literally died from not believing in the gods, allegedly, right, as the story goes. So it's not impossible that great thinkers also had non-God beliefs. Abraham Lincoln's a great example of this. Abraham Lincoln had struggles with believing in God, and a lot of people talk about him as being, I don't know, a person that's respectable, I guess. But anyway, moving on from that, I think that's all we got one other super chat. Actually, we got one from Donkey Butt. Thank you, Donkey Butt. Gave $4.99. It said favorite philosopher and why. Interesting question. What's your favorite philosopher, John?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. I mean, I'm not really. I don't even know. I'm not. That's not like. I'm not really into philosophy in that way. I like scientific minds.
Yeah, that's
rather
fair.
than philosophical minds. I don't really get anything from philosophy because it's just talking about what ifs. In my opinion, it's just what if this. It could be. That's not to me what I enjoy.
That's fair. I think Simone de Beauvoir is probably my favorite philosopher that I've ever read, and that's a tough one. Yeah. I think Simone de Beauvoir is probably the best, the most interesting 20th century philosopher, maybe my favorite philosopher.
I might change my answer to J. Mike.
J. Mike's a good answer. I think J. Mike would like that.
Yeah, and just thinking about it, like, yes, I'm not smart enough to follow philosophy, but when he talks, I listen. So let's say J. Mike. Okay,
there you go. J. Mike and Simone de Beauvoir. I think they're both on the same level, I'd say. So that's a good good answer there. Thank you for the super chat and thanks for the question. It's a good one. I see Josh has called back and he's in the queue. I do want to take a break from Josh real quick, just because we were talking for a while. So Josh, not that I don't want to talk to you, but let's talk to some other callers just because they've been waiting for a while too.
Yeah.
Now here's one. Okay. We do have John from Canada online. Now, are you up to date on the recent, did you watch the last Truth Wanted?
No.
John, because John from Canada, I would have my hesitations in bringing John from Canada, but John from Canada is called into the show, maybe more than any other caller.
Oh, I've spoken to John plenty of times.
You've spoken to John. We've all seen John. As of last week, John says they may not be a Christian anymore. And so we're in a new arc right now. John from Canada, you're live on Truth Wanted. Is this still true? Are you struggling with your belief in Christianity?
Yes, that is still true.
Okay. Have you made any movements there? Any new labels for yourself? Just curious. It's okay if you say no.
Maybe the best word to describe it right now would be agnostic.
Okay. All right. That is a development. I will say that. Wow. And John, you want to call in today about the dangers of evangelicalism. So tell me about your thoughts on that, because you have evangelized on this show. So kind of curious that you'd hold that position.
Well, before I get started, I would just like to say I like the glasses. Do you wear contacts usually?
I'm wearing contacts right now. Okay, listen, I'm embarrassed. I got these these are the Meta glasses. They were on sale and I wanted to try them. I think I'm going to return them. They were too expensive. I regret buying them, honestly. It was kind of an impulse thing. I just want to see because I like cool wearable stuff. And I want to be able to have like a screen on my glasses. But anyway, yeah, no, I just want to see what they look on camera and stuff. And I'm probably going to return them, John. But no, I usually wear contacts. Thanks for asking.
Okay. So, what I want to say about evangelicalism is that they're selling something that they know that they cannot honestly produce. For instance, if I have a product, let's say I have a blender, I say it's the best blender that's ever been built, invented, and it can do half the work and half the time, more work and half the time. I tell people, buy it, or invest in my company, but I have nothing set up. There's not even a blender, but people are giving my money. We will call that fraud. But in evangelism, these men go on stage and they say, okay, believe in God through me, pay me your money, and in some cases, obey me, and I will promise you eternal life. Now, whether it's eternal life or not, we cannot know for sure. But what these men are doing, they're promising something that they themselves know that they're not sure of, and B, something that they cannot possibly guarantee. Do you agree?
Pretty much. I mean, yeah. Again, that's just weird hearing it from you, John, because you have, again, need to emphasize this, have evangelized to us. So are you saying that you were committing acts of fraud with us?
Well, I genuinely believed.
And that's where the issue stands, because when it comes to evangelicals, they genuinely believe that they're doing the right thing. So it is like a really tough line because in their minds this is the absolute truth, and they need to let everybody know. You've been there, John. You know what it was like. I used to believe in an afterlife and dead people visiting, and I would hear voices and need to pass on messages. I genuinely believe that was a thing. And so yes, it may seem like it's fraud, but actually when you genuinely believe something, it doesn't come across from that person as fraud. So we're here, what I like doing is just saying, well, now let's look into that and see why that might not necessarily be a position to stand in, and we can take a look back. So yes, I see what you're saying. It could come across as fraud, but you're right. These folks, they genuinely believe. You genuinely believe that this was the truth, and so you felt like you were doing a service. But now where we were constantly saying, "Well, John, why do you believe that? Tell us, how we could demonstrate that to be the truth." So,
well, I'm not blaming the people who generally believe, because if you believe something, it's not lying if you promote it. My concern is when you have people who know the truth but they're promoting it anyways. For instance, I heard you earlier this show. You were talking about that guy Ken Ham. He definitely knows that he's bogus.
I don't know. Does he or does it? I don't know if there's any way we could prove that.
Right. And so here's the problem, John. It actually doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter whether Ken Ham's beliefs are genuine or not, because he's still actively causing, harm by telling lies, right? By what we would call lies. So this is kind of the problem. And this is why we don't stop at just saying, well, yeah, there's the fraudsters, but everybody else is still okay. It's like, no, a lie is still a lie, right? If it's still not true, it's still not true. And yeah, it gets more ethically complicated when we talk about folks with genuine belief, but it's not up to us to be able to tell someone whether their belief is genuine or not. We can only talk about the positions and the merits that they hold, right? So yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
I see. Anyway, well, what I'm trying to say is that you shouldn't promote something that you don't know 100% is true, or at the very least 99%. I won't say 100%. We'll say 99%.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know anything 100%. We don't know anything 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think I reasonably agree with you. But again, people are 100% confident in something as well and are still wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know if confidence level is necessarily the best metric either.
Well, you have to have, before you believe something, or before you give your allegiance to something, you should have a good idea that's true. Don't you agree?
I think that's reasonable. Yes. I think so. But you know what the problem is, John, and I imagine this is true for you, is that you and I grew up in a Christian world. We really did, right? We grew up with everybody else around us believing this thing. And then this thing called the internet came along and a bunch of other stuff that maybe showed us other points of view. But if I didn't have access to that, if I didn't have access to people outside of my community giving me other ideas about how the world works, I'd probably still be stuck in where I was at. And I think that's true for a lot of people, right?
So what made you question it?
Well, that is a long story, but it was a lot of things, John. I was a liberal Christian first before I became an atheist, because like many people who deconstruct from Christianity, you kind of do it with one belief at a time. You don't throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. You're kind of like, okay, well, maybe evolution's a thing, but evolution can coexist with this, or maybe maybe Paul and the epistles, his stuff, he kind of has some outdated opinions, but the gospel accounts are still true, and what they say in there has so this is what happened with my Christianity. Is it kind of just happened in layers. It wasn't necessarily everything all at once tumbling because of one single crack, right? And I think that's true for a lot of people. Some people, they do have a watershed moment, but beliefs are a little bit more complicated than that most of the time.
But you don't subscribe to the idea of theistic evolution?
No, and I'll tell you why if you're curious about that. Because I actually think that this is the one thing that Ken Ham and I probably agree on. And it's that you really can't make sense of the Bible and the narratives that it provides by understanding things from an evolutionary point of view. A lot of Christians say, well, really, the Old Testament we could say as metaphors, right? We could say as kind of allegorical, but the New Testament doesn't describe these tales in as much allegory as again, if you're just looking at it from a strictly Bible perspective, I'll give you the example for this. The book of Matthew talks about the genealogy of Jesus, okay? And there's another gospel account that talks about the genealogy. If you follow that literal genealogy, because a genealogy is an account of people's succession through family, it's talking about these people all the way up to Adam, by the way, I believe, as real people. It doesn't make sense to have an allegorical genealogy unless you're trying to make some sort of greater narrative or greater account. But then other parts of the Bible kind of fall apart. Like, I talked about demon possessions. Jesus wasn't the only guy in the Bible that did exorcisms. The disciples also were described to be doing this stuff as well, and were able to provide other kinds of miracles. And that seemed to change people's beliefs when these miracles occurred. So it really does kind of mess with a lot of the Bible when you talk about evolution. And Ken Ham is absolutely right about that. I actually don't think you can be a Christian and still have all these things make sense, but that's of course my opinion, and I'm talking a lot here. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, John.
No, you've said it all perfectly. I think you nailed it.
What do you think, John, from Canada?
But I went to Catholic school, and I remember, it's weird. They taught us the Bible. On one hand, they taught us that they read us the story of Genesis. But on the other hand, they told us about evolution. I didn't know what to make sense of that.
Yeah.
It's very strangely refreshing to hear you talking about everything like this, right, John. But I just want to make sure that you're okay, because as you're stepping away from all of this, there's what is known as the angry atheist phase, where, and I'm not saying you're an atheist or that you're angry, but as you start processing all of this stuff and the things that you've been told as truths are now sort of slowly falling apart for you, I just would like I want to find a way for you to reach out to folks so that you've got someone to talk to this whole time, because processing everything that you've been taught as this is what it is, you will need some kind of outlet and someone to talk to process everything, because it can get messy.
Absolutely.
So there are projects out there that you can call into or email into just for someone to speak to, and I just want to make sure that you're okay as you're processing all this, please.
That's our biggest concern, John, is we want you to be okay. No matter if you end up a Christian next week, that's your life. You do whatever. I want you to be okay with where you are.
I really appreciate that, Dan and John.
What we have.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you've been having some pretty deep thoughts recently about where you're at.
I have. Yes, I have.
Well, good for you.
Yes.
Good for you. It's a tough road.
I would like write some stuff down. You know that we're here every week. We love having conversations with you. Like, just think of one thing that has hit you hard that week that you'd like to process, and we will be here to discuss it with you and help you, discuss it. And you may have it may flip you back to some kind of belief, and we're happy to talk about that as well. But just know that we're here to discuss this all with you.
Yeah, write down your questions. I'm happy to answer my perspective on that. Go ahead.
Oh, you mean write down my questions? I think I'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I only say that with the caveat that neither John nor myself nor any host is a therapist, licensed or otherwise. Okay, we give our perspectives. We can't give you life advice. We're not going to do that, right? But we can provide you with resources if you need that. And also, if you go to the atheist community website, we actually just recently updated our resources page with more stuff for people to check out. So I do recommend you go in there if you need that kind of help. But you want our perspectives on what we think about this passage in the Bible or Southern Christianity, we can do that all week, Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I'll take down the environment and I'll let you go. But before I go, I'll just ask you one question.
Okay, shoot.
Yeah. Well, whatever happened to what's her name, Sin Sage?
Who?
Sin Sage.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Great.
That's an easy answer.
Good talking to you, John. Have a great one. Maybe see you next week. Yeah. So there you go, John, the Skeptic.
That is it. What a change in demeanor. What a pleasant conversation. And actually, I've been lucky. Whenever I've had a talk with John on air, it's always been very respectful. And I know that there are times that it goes the other way, but that's so strange to me. But wow, just wow, that he's opened up to having some questions asked.
And I do think he's opened up. I mean, I'm not saying he has to be anything,
right?
But if he's genuine in his claims, which I'm still on the fence about, I'm a little more believe. But as I said last time, I'm going to keep my distance.
Okay.
Then that is a true testament that anybody can really change their mind, right? And that maybe we shouldn't give up on the people around us, even if it does take us literal years.
Of conversation
with John.
Right.
I don't know. If that doesn't change your mind about that, I don't know what will, because I mean, hey, you want to believe in miracles? That might be the only miracle I've ever seen.
Yeah, right.
But that's just me. I don't know.
Good.
We do. We'll. I think we're gonna take at least one more call, folks. We got folks on the line, and I want to talk. I wish I could talk to everybody. We can't always get to everybody, but we will be on the after show in just a little bit. So you should go check out the fan-run Discord server where John and I can answer all your questions. It's off the air. And if you want to do that, we can do that. We try to make that space for folks, especially for folks who we can't talk to. And I know, Josh, I said I try to talk to you later. We do have some other folks that I do want to get to, though.
Right.
So I am going to give them that space just to make sure we talk to as many people as we can. But if you're going to go to the after show, we can do that or talk at a different time. I am going to talk to Ben right now. We got Ben calling in from Alabama. And I think, Ben, we'll take you as our last caller tonight. So what do you got for us?
All right. Thanks. Well, I was listening to one of the earlier calls, and I know he was asking a lot about like which idea has more explanatory power.
Mm-hmm.
And something I think a lot about is that basically my epistemology that I use for everything is the same one I use on my day job, which is I need an idea that predicts cause and effect with some reliability so I can cause the effects that I want.
Right.
Sure.
And
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like if I hear an idea that does not make any predictions, I'm not going to call it true. If an idea makes predictions but fails, then I'm going to call it false. And, it has to actually make some predictions that come true with some reliability. And, you test via the scientific method and then you hand it off to other people to use the ideas. And it's like, I hear so many people talk about the things they believe are true and they don't even try to like predict cause and effect.
Yeah. And I'm not going to put words into a previous caller, Josh's mouth, right? But I can imagine Josh or folks in maybe a similar camp making the case, well, doesn't that mean you're relying on materialism? Doesn't that mean you're relying on science? You have some sort of grounding epistemology. And so I would say if you can find something better, that would be great. But I agree with you, Ben. It seems that parsimony in particular, right, can provide more reliable results. And that's really what we need if we're going to have a grounded system of anything, of understanding. And is that going to come with flaws? Is that going to come with hindrances? Yes. But, as long as we're picking and choosing, I don't know what's going to work better. Right, John? What do you think?
Right. There's a great quote out there that if every science book ever written was to be erased and every religious book ever written was to be erased and we left it for like 100, 200 years and then went back to explain how things came to be, the science textbooks would almost word for word be what came back. So that's probably the best way to go. If you're just making up explanations for X, Y, and Z, then the new religious texts would be wildly different. But because we have these reliable, ways to test things, we would rediscover that in 200 years, 300 years, and we would get the same answers because we'd be testing things in the exact same way. So I'm always a big fan of, cause and effect. And, if we can prove this, then this is at the moment likely the best explanation we have until something better comes up.
Yeah, that's a really interesting interesting thought experiment. It reminded me that I think Newton and Leibniz both came up with calculus at about the same time with, I think, totally different notation, but it was basically the same thing. Right. And and it occurs to me, everyone's got a day job. Well, most people. So everyone's got something productive they need to do during the day, and they want it to actually happen. So there is some critical thinking involved with everybody, no matter how many crazy ideas they believe. The ones that actually immediately matter to them, they're going to have to use ideas that produce a reliable effect, or it just ain't going to work.
Yep. I agree. And this is, again, a criticism I have with the theist position, particularly the Christian theist position, because it just seems to be ad hoc. It just seems to be looking at things that don't make sense when we look at it through other lenses and saying, well, but if we maybe posit this, then maybe it works. And it's just, you can just do that forever and ever and ever and ever. And it doesn't produce satisfying results, in my opinion. It seems like there would be, if there was a God, there'd be easier ways to do some of this stuff, right? Like, I don't know, make a message to the world that everybody can clearly understand and not have to know whether it's a metaphor or not, or I don't know. I mean, just spitballing, but
And if a God that created the universe existed, would it not know exactly what it would take to convince everybody of its existence and not
sure,
need?
if it cared.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. But in the
Which
eyes
the God of
its
the Bible
believers,
seemed to do, to be clear.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and its believers want folks to know. So surely if that being existed, it would know exactly what words these believers would need to say and would tell them, so that everybody would be, there's so much that a being could do, and just at the moment doesn't seem to. So why should we bother?
Why would a God of the universe make its origin story known to man be believable through like locality? Like why would an anthropologist be able to look at that and trace it on like a geographic level rather than something else? Like, why aren't Aborigines talking about how Jesus saved them? We had to tell them that, right? As Christians. I don't know. It seems to be more plausible that these ideas came from people and not from God. And it's not just Christianity. I'm not trying to pick on that. Just it seems to be that way for all world religions. So
yeah, they had to use like Archimedean principles of buoyancy to create boats in order to bring Christianity to Australia.
Sure. Yeah. No, definitely. So there you go, Ben. We're probably on the same page there. Anything else you want to add before we let you go tonight?
Yeah. There's like one thing that builds on that. Because like my job involves making simulations, and one thing occurred to me, like when people talk about like prophecies and predicting the future, or as you were saying, like what would a God should know, what would convince anybody that they're real. And when in order to predict the future, what I do is I create a little simulation of a little slice of reality, and I play it out to see what happens. And so it's like, if you actually wanted to have prophecies and predict the future of our universe, I think you'd have to be a time traveler. You have to actually watch what happened and then go back and say, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do.
Sure. Yeah. And part of this too is I'm very privileged myself, Ben. I have a college education. I was able to have the free time to think about this stuff and learn about this stuff. Not as much these days working full time, but I at least there was a time where I was able to do that. Not everybody has that. There's a lot of systems involved that I think influence our belief. We sometimes as atheists, I think we make the mistake that our beliefs are completely the result of our personal responsibilities, but I don't think that that's necessarily always the case. Folks that have high stress lives are going to have the beliefs that give them comfort and probably rely on that more than I would need to, right? So, there's a lot of things happening here, but because you have a job where you critically think every day, you're able to think about that and see how you need these methods, and it's going to be more important for your daily life, whereas, somebody else may not rely on that as much and therefore may not think about it as much. So, I guess I'm just making that point to see how differently people can view this, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess like and I absolutely know people have different backgrounds, and my viewpoint, I've pretty much been mostly skeptical and atheist my whole life. I did have a brief love affair with cryptozoology when I was a child, but
hell yeah, like we all do.
Great.
Yeah.
The History Channel did a number on us. I'm just saying,
Yeah, the Hitler Channel. Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but I think the message I would hope people would hear is that it's those little things in your life where you need something to happen and you need to know how to make it happen, and that's truth. That a giant pile of Jordan Peterson-esque word isn't going to make something true.
Yeah.
The true is, can you use that idea to make something happen? And we all do that in some way or another.
Amen, Ben. Amen to that. I like it. Thanks so much for calling. I'm going to go ahead and let you go.
Yeah.
But appreciate
join us in the after show though, Ben.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome. Come and hang out.
Come and hang out with us if you want. Okay. We'd love to talk to you more then. But yeah, we're getting towards the tail end of the show here. John, thoughts on today's show? What did you think?
I've learned that if Marvel were to make a demon movie, don't put demons in pigs and shove them. It wouldn't be very entertaining.
Probably not.
No.
Although, actually, if Marvel did it though, the pigs would be like CG. They'd be like flying. Actually, maybe Thanos comes in and I don't know.
Man, I'd take it back. I would watch that. But the John from Canada, what a revelation!
What a revelation, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the revelation that should be written about.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm continuing to follow this arc with John. We'll see how John from Canada continues to evolve with us. But I thought today was great. Thanks to everybody who is watching. I want to give a quick shout out and thanks to the crew that helped make this show happen. Every single week we can get that crew cam on. Yes. Look at that beautiful shot of cat just chilling. I like that as well. I also need to give a special shout out to our backup host today, Flabbergast. First time appearance on any ACA show, I believe. Flabbergast, thanks so much for being on. And we didn't need you today, which is a good thing, right? Our internet connections worked. But maybe we'll see more of you in the future. So thanks for hanging out with us in the background, waiting for one of us to lose connection
Mess
at
up
any
or
point.
Vanish.
Yeah, for sure. The prompt this week, folks, just to remind you guys, is what's an offer Jesus couldn't refuse? So comment below the video, not in the live chat, on the comment section, and like, subscribe, all the stuff YouTubers tell you to do. But we kind of got to say one other super chat as well. I got to read out from Daisy, who gave $5. Thanks so much, Daisy, who said, "My teenage angst caused me to love punk music, which led to anarchism, then on to atheism. I had to develop good reason for that later," which is, I like that.
What a way to do it. That's a good journey.
Yeah, retroactive reasoning there. We love it. Come hang out with us, folks, on the after show, me and John, in just a second. And then you can finally hear me shut up and hear more of John talking here. But I'll leave it to you, John. You got any words of wisdom for the show before we wrap things up?
Just if it can happen to John from Canada, it can happen to anyone. There you go. There's my wisdom. And also white front to back.
Yes. Okay. Good things all around. I like that, folks. This has been whoa. Early intro there. Almost didn't give the sign off. Whoa, that never had that happen before. Anyway, folks, this has been another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan. Remember to always keep on the truth, and we'll see you next time. Boom. There we go.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/ytnp.